In the previous video, we talked about type selectors. Type selectors are selectors that use the actual HTML element's name in order to select all elements in the HTML document of that type and apply the specified style to the elements of that type. And again, it pulls all elements of that type and applies it to all of those types. In this video, we will be talking about CSS Class Selectors and what they are. Now, before we begin to dive into class selectors, let's first talk about the reason why we have class selectors. As we saw with type selectors, we are selecting a very specific type of HTML element inside of our HTML document, such as this type selector right here, which is the H4, this one the H2, and the H1. We're using those to style all H1s, like this My Website, as well as the H2s and the H4s that are inside of this page. Being that there are multiple H2s, this style for H2 would apply to all of those styles. Now, what happens when we want to style more than one element, and those elements are different element types? In other words, what if we wanted to have a common style between all H1s, H2, and H4s that apply to all of those elements, except for the fact, the problem that we have is that H1, H2, and H4 are different element types. Therefore, using a type selector won't work. What we need is the ability to add styles across element types. And that's exactly what class selectors are for. On our HTML elements, we have the ability to add a new attribute that is called class. When we add a class attribute, we can provide a value off of which the CSS engine can search in order to identify all elements in the page that belong to a specific group. And the group is going to be whatever we put for the value of this class attribute. For in this case, we're styling all of the headers. So let's go ahead and let's be very specific in our class value, which is going to be the name of our group that we're going to search on in order to apply styles. And we're going to call this common header style. Now this is a really long CSS name, but we're being super specific here. So common header style. So this is a style that we want to apply to all headers, whether they're H1, H2, H3, H4, or H5. Now, if we remember looking at our really ugly website that we've been working on, we can see that our H1s have this green color, and then our H2s have a more of a teal color or a dark green. And that is because inside of our CSS styles, we're using this yellow-green, we're using a dark slate gray for our H2s, and then our H4s have this lighter gray color, or just gray. Now let's say that right now, all of our H tags, all of our headers, have a font that we don't like. And we want to use a common font across all of our headers. To do that, we added this class style called common header style, and we are going to apply that to all of our header tags in order to make sure that this common style goes across all of our H1s, H2s, and H4s that we have. So now they all have this common class style inside of their class attribute. So let's go ahead and pull that class name or value as our CSS group. Now when we're using classes, the indicator inside of CSS as to the type of selector we're using is a period. So we use dot and then the value that we placed in the class attribute of every HTML element in our page. So in this case, we are using dot common header style, and then we are going to change the font family, and we're going to use Courier New Now, when we go back to our HTML page, we should see that all H1, H2, and H4s that have the common header style class attribute set with this value, we should see that they are now using courier instead of the default that comes with the browser. And if we open up our JavaScript, our developer tools, and we go to our elements, and then we select one of these header tags, we should be able to see that it now has a style attached to it for the font family of Courier New, which overrides the default style that is provided by the browser. And if we click on one of the other ones, so we'll go to the H1, we'll see that it still has it. And then our H4 also has that. And we'll see that that style is located in main.css. And we're good to go. Now we have a method for changing or adding new properties or CSS properties with different values than what is being used in the rest of the page by using a common style across different element types, all using the class selector, which is this period here in our CSS. Period, and then the name of the class value, or the value of the class attribute inside of our HTML. So right there, now we have that ability, and we'll move on.